the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and what a night it was, Saturday night, between Philadelphia Union and Sporting Kansas City, where we all arrived to the stadium, if you went out to the stadium. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful weather. The sun is out, it's in the mid-70s, and we're all just having a great time. And we knew the weather was coming. We knew it was supposed to get windy. We knew it was supposed to rain. But I think what we didn't expect was a delay in this game because of thunderstorms. So yeah, that was a different experience than what I've experienced in the past, where when I've been at the stadium for a weather delay, I've always went and sat on my season tickets. And for people that have never been to Subaru Park, you get sent to sit out in the concourse when lightning's in the area instead of sitting in the bowl because they don't want anybody getting struck by lightning. And yeah, it was kind of weird just being up in the press box and everything and getting a view of just the rain just coming down off of the roof of the stadium, watching lightning all around and listening, from where the fans were sitting under the river end to where I was sitting up in like the cafe lounge area. It was loud. I could hear the fans doing their chants, banging their drums, making noises. So shout out to Sons of Ben and Keystone State Ultras for bringing the energy, even though there was a weather delay. And even the fans who stayed for an hour and a half from when kickoff was supposed to happen at 7:30, it didn't happen until 8:40. So it was a weird experience because of how nice the weather was, and it turned super fast. And then we get put through a game that was super dull, super boring. A game I think a lot of you that went to the game probably would have wished that you didn't go to the stadium, just because that's the type of soccer game where, you guys have friends that say, oh, I hate soccer because there's no scoring, it's so boring. The type of game that we witnessed last night is the stereotypical game that your friends call soccer. That game last night was that. And that was not an enjoyable game to watch, but I did personally have fun going around the stadium before the match, interviewing fans, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do that segment yet. So when you guys listen to this episode, I have like different clips broken up, and we'll talk about what I asked fans and then play that, because I thought about, starting the show before I talk about my thoughts from the game, that I would just play the whole interview from me going around talking to fans. But I was like, if I do that, then you guys have no reason to go on YouTube and watch that video once I get it posted on YouTube. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to break it into clips that fit with what we're talking about on the podcast. So that's what we're going to go with. And you guys let me know if that's what we should do going forward. Should I play the whole interview so you guys can hear the different conversations? I don't know. You guys let me know, because I had a couple of you guys reach out last week, and I appreciate the people that reached out. Billy, I know you were the first one to reach out and say, I appreciate how in-depth you go breaking down the goals on the podcast, but there really is no reason for me to check out the YouTube video for goal breakdowns if you're just going to use the same audio. So maybe go a little less in-depth on the podcast, and that way people can go and check out the YouTube video. I'm like, that's actually a really smart idea. I was thinking about it, but I was like, I don't know, because we've went so in-depth the last year breaking down goals on the podcast. But now that I'm showing you guys what I'm seeing on my screen on YouTube, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But as we all know, there was no goals to break down in this game. So we're not going to break down any goals in this game. And we don't even have any MLS news that's worth talking about this week, which is kind of a shocker. And so this is probably going to be a fast-ish episode, I would imagine. I mean, what could you possibly talk about in a 0-0 game? Not much, right? I mean, I could talk about my experience for 10 minutes, just what it was like interviewing people and how, I only went up to people that I knew personally. So got to get more comfortable just going up to random people and interviewing them and spreading the word about the podcast because that's how we're going to continue to get more and more people listening to the podcast. And it's super easy. It's super easy where nobody's watching me. I'm sitting behind my computer, speaking into the mic. Nobody's watching. That's super easy now. I can do that all day. But going around the stadium, talking into a mic in front of a camera, it's a different story. But the more you do something, the better you get at it. So I'm sure we'll have a lot more interviews this season. A lot of people that I'll probably meet for the first time. At least that's the goal. And for the people that I did interview, Jarrett, Kyle, Jillian, Kyle Almany, 2 Kyles I interviewed. Wow, I didn't even realize that. And then pulling me. Thank you guys for being willing to be interviewed. And I'll play some of the clips here, like I said, where it makes sense to bring it into the show. But I do want to give a shout out to Jimmy King. And I know, Jimmy, you didn't know this was coming. But Jimmy, that was the first time we met in person last night at the stadium. We've chatted here and there on Twitter. Really great guy. If you guys aren't following Jimmy on social media, be sure to check out Jimmy's profile. I think he has an Instagram too. Pretty sure I'm following you on Instagram, Jimmy. Definitely at Twitter. I don't have his handle in front of me, so sorry. Type in Jimmy King, look for that. I'm sure you'll have mutual followers on Twitter, and that's the best way to follow Jimmy. But him and I were talking last night before the game. He also writes for Philly Sports Network, and we were talking before the game, about music. I love music. Jimmy is very diverse in artists that he's worked with. He used to be a tour manager. And so we were just chatting about music. And that was a really, 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 really enjoyable conversation. Just talking about different bands, talking about bands from Philadelphia, talking about music that I'm into. Again, we could spend this whole podcast talking about music that I'm into instead of talking about the Sporting Kansas City game. But I'm not sure you guys really want to hear about that. But yeah, it was such a great conversation with Jimmy. I mean, just so easygoing. And I didn't tell you this, Jimmy, yesterday, but I've got to be more like you because I saw you, Jimmy. You're going around everybody. You're being so open around everybody. You're going up to anybody and everybody. At least that's what it seemed like. And you're starting conversations just like you've known this person your whole life. So I've got to take a page out of your book and become more comfortable, walk out of my shell, and become like you in that aspect of, being comfortable talking around anyone. So, Jimmy, I'm going to try to be like you in that regards. And hopefully that'll help me interview people. And yeah, we'll see where that takes me. But I really did appreciate meeting you last night, Jimmy, and talking music. I love music. And he's writing a lot of great stuff with PSN. And it's great to see more and more people get involved covering the union. I mean, I don't know if you guys have noticed this on social media, but there's a lot of different outlets covering the union. And I guess that's what happens when a team starts to be good for 5 plus years. 5 years, I guess we should say, probably not 5 plus years. But I do wonder, if we get more games like this, the union go back to losing, then does all the coverage go away? Probably, if we're being honest. Everybody wants to talk about the union. Everybody wants to hop on board because of what they did last year, what they've done the last 5 years with this team, with Ernst Tanner, with Jim Curtin. But as soon as the union go back to 2011, 2012, 2013, people are going to stop covering them. People are going to stop talking about them. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but because the hot new thing in town, I guess I'm not new, but the hot thing in town, everybody wants to cover the Philadelphia Union. So it is nice seeing all these different outlets and people cover the team, and hopefully that continues. But yeah, let's just get into the Philadelphia Union versus Sporting Kansas City match and stop delaying this any longer because we have to talk about this. And like I said, I mean, it was just such a dull and boring game after that weather delay. During the game, I posted a picture of a trash bag blowing around the field during the match, and I said, it's pretty sad that it's been more exciting watching this trash bag blow around the field than the actual game going on. And during that match, I was thinking about all the people that were around watching the Union in the early days, just witnessing that type of soccer we saw last night, where the Union take a lot of shots, but none of them look like troubling the goalkeeper. Where the Union probably should have beat that team. Sporting Kansas City has not won a game in MLS. You would think, okay, this is a game the Union are going to win. It's not the case. And I'm sure a lot of you fans that have been around since day one, you guys would go into BPL Park, which it was called back in the day for any new listeners. Then you have what, Talent Energy and then Subaru Park. So it's been through a couple different name changes. And you guys have seen just those boring soccer games where you guys feel confident coming in. The Union should beat the worst team in the West coming in, and it doesn't happen. Or they find a way to lose. That's so Union. Luckily, the Union didn't lose last night, but there was a couple of us in the press box last night saying, oh, you just know the Union are going to give away a late penalty in this game, a late set piece, and lose this game 1-0. Because that's the type of game that this seemed like it was going to be. The Union couldn't find the back of the net, and the Union were just taking shots just to take shots. I mean, they're forcing shots that they shouldn't be forcing, and it goes back to what Jim Curtin was talking about a couple weeks ago. We're forcing passes, we're forcing shots, we're shooting when we should be passing, we're passing when we should be shooting, and that just goes back to this team not being able to get out of their heads from last season. We'll get into that a little bit. Before the game, I asked fans, is it a concern that the Union have started slow pretty much in every single game this season? Yes, they might have not conceded in the first 10, 15 minutes of the game, but they have given up chances. And I asked fans, is that a concern for you tonight against Sporting Kansas City? Is that a concern going forward this season for the Union? And this is what some of the fans had to say.
I mean, I'm not totally concerned yet, but if this continues much longer, I definitely will be. I think, tonight's going to be big. We'll see what they do tonight. So what do you think, Kyle?
Well, as I think with me anyway, with the CCL, obviously that's going to play a big factor into it. Obviously, international break plays a big factor into it. Am I concerned yet? No. Now, like we said the other day, get 10, 15 games in the season, yeah, then maybe, and we're still doing this, yeah, then maybe we can talk. But for right now, no, I'm not really that concerned. I think what I'm more concerned about is if people like Andre Kai continue to be out, we keep having injuries, then I'm going to be a little concerned about that defense. But for right now, no, I'm not concerned.
A little, right? But I know that they were crushing it in Florida. So as soon as the weather warms up, like tonight, it's beautiful. I'm hoping that they find their stride. It takes a few games, in the real field and the real weather. So I'm a little concerned, but I'm not too worried. I know they're going to figure it out.
I mean, that's great confidence to have, right? I mean, that they will eventually figure it out because we saw it last season, the Union in the summertime when the weather got better, right? I mean, it was fun going to Subaru Park, blowing out teams 5-6-7-0, keeping clean sheet after clean sheet. It was the place to be last season, Subaru Park. It was a party every single game. Jim Curtin talked about it the very first game or second game this season. I think it was against Chicago. And he said, I can sense that the fans are expecting 5 goals every single game. The players seem like they're expecting to score 5 goals every single game. And that's just not going to happen, Jim Curtin said. And it's the truth, right? The Union aren't going to blow out teams every single game. We've only seen them blow out one team so far this season in MLS, and that was Columbus Crew. But I don't think that scoreline did any justification to how the game really went, with the Union beating Columbus 4-1. I think the game was a lot closer than what it truly was. And now look how Columbus are playing under Wilfred Nance. And this is what he does, right? He takes young players, he gives them a chance, and he adapts to the players that he has on his team already, and he gets the best out of those players. And we're seeing that early on in Columbus. And they don't even have Cucho Hernandez right now. He's out injured. And look at Wolf Nance just getting result after result with Columbus, blowing out Atlanta United, what, 5-1, 6-1 last week, beating RSL last night 4-0. I mean, they're scoring for fun. You have Aiden Morris, who isn't your prototypical goal scorer, and he's scoring goals left and right for fun for Columbus. And this is a guy who's, making a case that he should be on the Gold Cup for the United States come the summertime. So Aiden Morris has been fantastic. Luckily, the Union didn't have to play Columbus in that type of form the first week of the season. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Columbus continued to play under Wilfred Nancy, and I wasn't expecting to go onto a little bit of a Columbus rant, but there are a couple of you Columbus fans listening to the podcast, so I'm sure you guys didn't mind that rant, giving you guys the credit you deserve. But yeah, I mean, going back to Kyle Gillian and Polemi's thoughts, is it a concern that the Union have started slow this season? I mean, look, the Union didn't start slow against Sporting Kansas City, and maybe you can take that away as a positive. I know Jim Curtin said you can take a positive away that we kept a clean sheet, and maybe now we can build on that. Yeah, sure. Those are both positives. I mean, the biggest negative is the Union can't score. The front three looks disjointed, but I guess that's not fair just to those three. The whole team looks disjointed, in my opinion. The diamond doesn't look like a diamond. The team's not pressing as a team. Players are getting pulled out of position way too easily. And again, I have a clip about the diamond from Peter Vermes that I'll play here in a little bit. I mean, there's a lot more negatives than there are positives, right? And again, some of you OGs, I'm sure this brings you back to your big soccer days where on all those different forms, it was filled with nothing but negadelphia. And that's starting now to creep on Twitter now, where it's just game after game. It seems like people are hopping on that bandwagon, panicking, complaining about the form the Union are on. And I get it. I would be angry too that the Union are 2-1-3. I I'm not as angry, but I understand why people are angry. And a lot of it's what I just mentioned. That this team looks disjointed. The front three is not clicking like they did last season. And Jim Curtin mentioned that this team's lacking confidence right now. And I do agree with him that this team, and it's very, very obvious that this team's just not what they were at the end of last season to what they are right now. And the big reason for that is confidence, in my opinion. And like I said, that's what Jim Curtin blamed it to.
Not our best night again, not our sharpest. I think we have a situation where we have a little bit of a lack of confidence in ourselves right now, and it becomes contagious. I think the one way to get out of that is through hard work and intensity, and the guys are working hard, but we're not sharp. I think that's clear for everybody to see. The first half in particular, the amount of unforced errors where it looks like we're about to have a good attack, and all of a sudden we almost pass directly to the other team, and it's very uncharacteristic of us and leads to chances for Kansas City. Again, don't look like ourselves, which hurts. I think the second half we improved a bit, still weren't at our top, but created 4 or 5 good looks at goal. Tamelia made some good saves. I think the one and lone positive from the night is that we kept the clean sheet. That's something to build off of. And right now, when you're looking for confidence and looking to move on now to a Champions League game on Tuesday, you can take that one positive away. But we know we have to be better.
Yeah, the Union, there's no doubt that they have to be better. And I think, the players have come out and said that it was good to get away and clear their minds in the off season, not think of how the season ended. But I think it's pretty obvious that these players are still stuck on last season's final loss. And yeah, you guys are probably still recovering from the way the Union lost to LAFC last year. I think, I have it out of my system. I don't remember that final, or I choose not to remember the way that the Union lost last year. But can you imagine how those players feel? I mean, they worked their tails off to come back twice in that game against LAFC and finally, finally get a lead. And all they have to do is just defend for a couple more minutes. And then, of course, Gareth Bale comes on and scores. And sorry for reminding some of you guys how that game ended, where some of you guys, like I said, are probably still recovering. But I can't imagine. I mean, you've got to be feeling just on top of the world when you take the lead 3-2. LAFC are down a man, and you just got to hold on. And they can't. They can't hold on, and they have it ripped away from them. I mean, I can't imagine going from on top of the world and then getting brought all the way down, and then you're going into penalty kicks. I mean, how do you have the confidence? How are you in the right mental state to go up and take penalties, to put what just happened the last 5-6 minutes away and say, okay, I need to forget about what just happened and focus on penalties? How can you do that? And then you eventually lose on penalties. I think it's still stuck in these players' mind that they were this close to winning the MLS Cup last season. And it seems like every single game, they're just doing too much. They're trying to win that final, I saw somebody say. Every single game, it seems like the Union are going out there and trying to win that final. And the truth is, no matter what they do, they cannot replace what happened last season. They cannot. It's in the past. And yes, it's a lot easier said than done. But it's clear as day that this team is letting that hold them back. And the players might not come out and admit that, right? Jim Curtin might come out and say that it's not the case. We're leaving that in the past. But deep down, you know these players are thinking about that. You know that still hurts these players. And the question I would ask is, how much further can this team realistically go? Because during the week I was pulling up numbers. I was curious to see how much of this roster is still intact from previous seasons. 26% of this roster is still here from 2019. 33% of the roster is still here from 2020. 59% of the roster is still here from 2021. And 81% of the roster is still here from 2022. We all know the Union brought back majority of their squad. They brought back every single starter from last season. And you feel good about that. You think that that's going to help the Union push forward and win trophies, which is true. It should. The teams that do well in MLS, they come back with the same squad. Maybe not every single year, but maybe for a year or two. But I think one thing we're overlooking is that, yes, the Union brought back 81% of their squad from last season. And yes, they made key trades to make the team better on paper than what it was last season. But the league as a whole continues to get better. That's the truth. So as much as we want to praise the Union for bringing back their squad, for getting better on paper, there's other smart GMs in the league that are making their team just as good as the Union, if not better. Look at Cincinnati. And I know you guys are probably tired of talking about Cincinnati, who the Union play this upcoming weekend after Atlas. And we'll see if we get a preview episode on. Hopefully we do. Going to try to make that work. But again, a little bit hard with Champions League on Tuesday. And that does not give us much time to try to record a quick preview episode with. Not giving, I guess, much time to work with, but we will try to get a preview episode this week. But Cincinnati is a great example of getting better. Look what they did last season under Pat Noonan. And yes, it's fun to joke, oh, you guys are getting all these ex-union staffers, these ex-union players. But there's something to that, right? Why wouldn't you do that if you're Chris Albright or Pat Noonan? Why wouldn't you get players in that you're familiar with? If the union are willing to let them go, if they let them go, why wouldn't you bring those players in? Why wouldn't you bring in staff from the union if you're going to give them a job promotion? If you knew they were good at doing their jobs with the union? Why wouldn't you do that? I don't blame Chris Albright for that at all. I don't blame Pat Noonan for bringing in former union players at all. And we see them sit on top of the Eastern Conference. They continue to get better and better. And they have a real strong case for Supporters Shield winners this season. I know we're only 6 games in, but they look like they've continued to pick up where they left off since last season, losing 1-0 to the Union in the playoffs. And you guys don't have to think about that game too hard. That was a hard-fought win for the Union in the playoffs after Cincinnati just took it to New York Red Bulls. They come in and lose 1-0. Leon Flock, out of all people, score the game-winning goal against Cincinnati. That's what it took. They did a great job shutting down the front three of Gazdag, Ua, and Carranza. A team that was not lacking confidence then, now they surely are. And now they got to play Atlas on Tuesday, and they got to go to Cincinnati over the weekend. Well, it's not a great recipe, in my opinion. But if you do look, saying that, yes, you have every right to panic. But when you look at 2021, when we were in the CONCACAF Champions League, we started 2-2-2 in the first 6 games of the season, and we're 2-3-1 right now. And we all know that terrific run the Union went on after they lost to Club America in the semifinals. The Union went 7-2-5. They lose to New York City in the Eastern Conference Finals. And teams typically do start slow in the CONCACAF Champions League. This isn't just a Union thing. And yeah, I know that excuse may be tiring for some, but it is the truth. You look at every single team that is competed in the CONCACAF Champions League. They always try to focus on Champions League first. Because why wouldn't you? That's your first chance of winning a trophy. The Union are in the quarterfinals. They only have to win, 6 games, and they lift a trophy where you still have to play 28 games of the regular season, and then you have to play a whole bunch of playoff games. This is your easiest chance to win a trophy. Like, why wouldn't you go all in for the Champions League? We see every single team do that are still involved in Champions League every single year. And so I think when you think about that, maybe you can try not to panic as much as you are. And you could also agree that this team right now is, at least on paper, a much more talented team than they were in 2021 when they were going on that CONCACAF Champions League run. Daniel Gazlag's now fully integrated with this team. They've upgraded both of their strikers. You have this team, the core group of players, back. 81% of the club back from the 2022 season. What was the number? 59% of this roster that was here in 2021 that was a part of that CONCACAF Champions League run, they're still here. And so they know what it takes to progress in the Champions League. But let's be realistic here, right? That this core group of players, this very might well be the last time that majority of this team stays together, if we're being honest. Because why wouldn't Ernst Tanner say, okay, we're going to start over? We got the most we could get out of these players. They took us to a final. and they couldn't get it done. They gave it their all. They can't get out of their heads. They're still trying to play for that final. So we're gonna go ahead and change majority of this roster around. Because yes, even though 81% of this roster is still here from 2022, they still changed this roster, bringing in trades, signing homegrown players. You look from 2019 to 2020, there was 31% roster turnover. In 2020, there was 66% roster turnover. 2021, 51% roster turnover. So Ernst Tanner does change this roster. And with 2022 to 2023 being the lowest amount since 2020 when this roster was changed, you've got to expect 2024 we're going to see a significant amount of change. And last year might have been their best opportunity to win a trophy. And I know that they brought back 81% of their roster from last season. I know I just said it. But what if they can't? What if they just can't go any farther? What if they're just stuck? Stuck on losing that final at LAFC, and this is the best that they can give. That they can't get over it. It's possible, right? It's possible. And being low in confidence, it's a killer. And that's hard to navigate. I mean, what's Jim Curtin do? Does he pull a player that's lacking confidence? Because if he does that, what's that going to do to their confidence? That's really going to put them down. And you want them to play through their issues and try to correct them on their own? Of course you want to do that. But if you have players knocking on the door on the bench, if they're willing to give you a better fight than your regular starting 11, then I think you got to consider going to those type of players. And Jim Curtin talked about taking risk, playing more dangerous at home, not playing conservative, because that's what it seemed like they started out against Sporting Kansas City.
But we know we need to be more dangerous at home. I want us to be brave. I want us to take risk. I want us to, be relentless at going to goal. I don't care about mistakes. Mistakes are part of this game. But right now, our reactions after mistakes are almost like, it gets contagious. We make another mistake and we compound things. So overall, again, I thought, if you talk about the team defending, not bad. Andre didn't have a ton to do. I think we gave up a lot of corner kicks and we gave up some restarts and silly fouls around the box, but didn't give up a ton in the run of play. So I thought defensively we were solid. I thought Matt Real came in and did a great job, did his job, which is all you ask. I thought Jacob was excellent, but we don't want our center backs to be our creators and our best guys on the night. So we have to get more in the attack. I think that will come, but we also need to maybe feel a little pressure. I think pressure is good. I said it to the guys this week. This is a high pressure week in that we have a big game against Kansas City, who's desperate, and a game against Atlas in Champions League where we need to find ways to get results. Tonight's a point, but for us at home, a point is 2 points dropped. So it hurts a bit, but I think you are right. Defensively, we were solid and didn't give up a lot, but we have to get things going on the other end for sure.
And Jim Curtin talked about it too at the beginning of the season, saying that the hardest part is getting your offense to click. It's always the last part that starts to click. And when they don't click, you go into panic mode, and maybe now you keep a clean sheet against Sporting Kansas City, which I know is not the hardest thing in the world to do when they can't seem to buy a goal either. Have yet to win a game in MLS, but it's a start, right? It's a start. Defensively, this team's always been defense first. They're a team that always wants to turn you over and then hit you on the counterattack. And, I didn't even have this written down in my notes, but you know who's probably loving this start for the Philadelphia Union? The person who gave the unanimous quote in the Athletic saying the Union aren't even an effing good team. They're probably saying, "See, look, I was right." Well, actually, they're not saying that publicly, but whoever said that, they're probably saying it to the team. "See, look, I told you, the Philadelphia Union aren't a good team. You see, they can't get it done. The league's starting to figure them out. They're just going to go back to what they once were. We don't have to worry about them anymore." That person's probably loving what the Philadelphia Union are doing so far in MLS play. But I'm happy with the clean sheet. I'm happy to see the defense played as well as they did. But Jim's right. I mean, they kind of played like cowards at home. They played way too conservative. You're at home. Why aren't you taking chances? That's when you should be at your best. We saw it last year, but again, I'm tired of talking about last year, and I know I keep bringing it up, and I shouldn't because last year was last year, this year's this year, but man, it's so hard. It's so hard, and it sucks. Bringing up last year really does. It really does suck. Always bringing up last year, and we always find ourselves comparing this season to last year because that's all we have, right? That's all we have. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks to see the Union play that way offensively at home, not taking chances. Why aren't you taking chances? And credit to Sporting Kansas City for forcing the Union to take shots where they don't want to take shots, forcing them to pass the ball where they don't want to pass. And Peter Vermees was asked by Jonathan Tannenwald, which was a outstanding question from him, saying, have teams figured out how to beat the Union?
It's actually a really good question because I think everyone loves to talk about formation and style of play and all this stuff. I think at the end of the day, what you have to bring to every game in MLS is this high level of intensity and effort. And if you don't, you're going to get knocked off the park no matter who you play. I will say that this team over the last couple of years has been very consistent at that. And I think what happens to you after a while, whether it's them or anyone else, teams realize that if they're going to play, they got to bring that. And if they don't bring it, they're out. So if they bring it, then all of a sudden it's a battle. Like, this is two teams that came in, lost the last two, and this was a battle tonight. This was. This wasn't, some high-level possession, soccer game with all these different counter moves from a tactical perspective. It was just straight up. You had to defend the boxes, and everybody was trying to find something to ricochet off somebody or drop for somebody and hopefully steal the goal. I give my guys a lot of credit because I made a lot of changes in the team. And Rosero just got here on Sunday. So for him to be able to jump in the game, play 90 minutes like he did was fantastic. But Philly's a really good team. I'm always really, really, cautious to comment on the style of play of another team because I think I think that you play the way you play, you have success, and you're consistent at it. I think usually that's what usually rules the day. But again, if you lack the effort and the intensity, you might as well forget about it. You're done in this league.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point from Peter Vermees, where he said that teams come in here and they play not afraid at Subaru Park. You're going to see more results like this, like we saw from Kansas City. They came in here with an intensity to match the Union, which I guess isn't really that hard because the Union didn't have a ton of intensity in this game, at least in my opinion. But one thing I think's telling is, okay, you get your team up there with the confidence that, look, we can get a result in Subaru Park. You get them believing that, and then you're going to go ahead and have them playing that way. then you can start winning the tactical battle. And we did see Peter Vermes, in my opinion, win the tactical battle. I think it was very interesting where I don't know if you guys caught this in the first 26 seconds in the game, where Tommy, the center midfielder for Sporting Kansas City, he's sitting not as deep as a number six. He was playing on the left side as an eight, but he goes he kind of plays as a center forward. He makes a run from his eight position on the left side of the field, goes completely unmarked by anybody in the midfield. Nobody tracks the run. And luckily, the Union were able to, I think it was Jacob Glesnes who headed the ball away. But, okay, we talked about the Union not starting slow, but the midfield, 26 seconds in, they were caught sleeping. Good thing Jacob Glesnes and the defense seemed like they were pretty alert this whole game. But you saw multiple times in the game where you would see Zusi on the right-hand side making inverted runs inside Johnny Russell. You would see Zusi make outside runs from Johnny Russell. You would see Johnny Russell cut inside and kind of play as a 10. You would see Daniel Shallowy, not as much as Johnny Russell, but he would also come in and play as a number 10. They didn't play with a 10. They would constantly have players run into that space. A lot of times it was Johnny Russell running into that space, but you would have Remy Waltier, you would have Tommy running into that space, acting as can you say a false 10? I don't even think that's a real thing, but they were playing as a fake 10, and that's also not a real thing. You just, my point is, you had multiple players just rotating into that space because they're not playing with a 10. You have Agata, your striker, sitting up pretty high. You're not, typically you see teams when they're playing with a 9, you'll see teams want their lone 9 drop in and get on the ball. That wasn't really the case with Sporting Kansas City. They wanted Agata to stay up high so they could play him in 1v1 situations against the Union center backs, which again, Union fantastic defensively. Jacob Glesnes, Jack Elliott were all over that. They cut out those long balls to Agata all night long. So that was great awareness from the center backs for the Union to know that that was the game plan for Sporting Kansas City, that they're going to try to play these long balls over the top to Ogata. And maybe some of those passes didn't come off because of the wind, but I did think it was interesting seeing what Peter Vermes was doing tactically against the Union, just with all these overloads, having the fullbacks playing inverted, cutting inside, not playing with a number 10. And at times, the Union's midfield seemed to get a little bit confused. Players were getting pulled out of position. Liam Flock got pulled out of position a couple times. Jose Martinez was pushed up a little bit too far in the field. And then Sporting Kansas City would have numbers going forward. But thank goodness it was Sporting Kansas City and not another team playing the Union, because they probably would have made the Union play if it was a better team, in my opinion. It wasn't a great game from the Union. Fortunate, I guess, that it was Sporting Kansas City. I mean, look, if it's like this on Tuesday against Atlas, the Union are probably going to lose that game. I think the Union have to win by 3 goals on Tuesday night. They've got to do everything they can to keep a clean sheet, because it's going to be hard going down to Mexico and trying to get a result. And to try to get a win down in Mexico, it's going to be a tough ask. I mean, Atlas just tied Chivas on Saturday 3-3. Score a ton of goals at home, Atlas. And yeah, they do concede as well, but I have a hard time seeing the Union scoring down in Mexico. And if you guys remember on the podcast, I asked Jim Curtin back in January, okay, you guys brought in Damian Lowe. Will you guys attempt to play a 3 in the back? Is that because of what Pat Noonan did last season with Cincinnati? And Jim Curtin said this: if you do the same thing over and over again, teams will catch up to us. So we have to adjust or we'll die. And with Kai Wagner out with a grade 1 hamstring strain, which Jim Curtin wouldn't rule him out on Tuesday's game against Atlas, even though Ernst Tanner told Joe Tanzi that he'll probably miss a couple games. Why not go with 3 in the back? Why not give teams different looks? And again, comparing Pat Noonan, I can't help but not compare Pat Noonan in Cincinnati to the Union. But you look what he did last season with Cincinnati when they played with 3 in the back. Pat Noonan didn't want to play with 3 in the back. He wanted to play a diamond, but he made do with the players he had on his roster. And he did a hell of a job. Argument that he should have won Manager of the Year. Strong case for that. And he goes and plays with a 3 in the back. He's constantly overloading the ball side with his fullbacks pushing up high. His defensive midfielders also pushing up high in the attacking third. Why not try that if you're Jim Curtin? Why not come out Tuesday night against Atlas with Uwer and Kranz up top, Gosek as a 10, Real and Bizo as your 2 fullbacks, Pereira and Martinez as your 2 sixes, and then Elliott, Lowe, Glesnes, and Blake as the final 4 players? Why not come out with that against Cincinnati, against Atlas? I mean, I would. Why not throw a different look out there? Like Jim Curtin said, if you do the same thing over and over again, teams will catch up to us. So we have to adjust or we'll die. So why not make the adjustment? Why not make it now? I get it. You might not want to play 3 in the back when Kai Wagner is healthy. But he's not right now. Why not try to play 3 in the back right now? And even when Kai Wagner comes back, I mean, he's a great offensive player. You could play 3 in the back with Kai Wagner as that left wing back. But why not try it now? You know, the Diamond's just not getting results against teams. It's just not. The Diamond's not even looking like a diamond. It's getting pulled apart way too easily. You're not using your width. And one way you can get width is by using wingbacks. So why not try that? Why not? And I know last night against Sporting Kansas City, the Union went from like a 4-2, 3-1 at times, 4-3-1-2. I mean, they constantly changed their shape to try to get something going at Sporting Kansas City. But why not start a game in a completely different formation? And the last thing that I'll say, because honestly, I didn't expect to talk about this game for as long as I did. I asked some fans, well, what would you do formation-wise against Sporting Kansas City? Do you rotate against Sporting Kansas City, or do you rotate against Atlas? And this is what people had to say.
I would go starting 11. We need to continue to get these guys minutes together, get them rolling, especially if Blake is available to play, get him in. I'd rather have him in and get back to game readiness before Tuesday rather than having to jump in Tuesday and be like, all right, huge game, potentially knockout game, go do your thing. So I think it's important to make sure the guys continue to get minutes.
Yeah, I think starting 11 would be great. You know, put your foot on the gas from the first minute, you know, get off to a hotter start. And then, around the 60th minute, make some subs, get the bench guys in, get them involved. Because we've seen a lot from them in the CCL, and I don't know if Jim's going to want more from them. But I do think that if we get off to a hot enough start tonight, then the bench players have to come in a lot sooner just to keep our starters, somewhat fresh.
I think you can go either way, right? It's Sporting Kansas, I feel like, is one of the worst teams that we've seen. One of the worst. I mean, Colorado's down there too, right? So I'd be fine with the regular, openers. I'm really excited to see Carranza tonight because he had that red card and he is my favorite and he is more caliente. So I'm excited to see him, but I think you could go either way, right? I think no matter what happens tonight, we're still going to be a strong team on Tuesday, just because, Sporting Kansas hasn't been as strong this season.
I hope the Union are strong on Tuesday night. I'm sure a lot of you guys feel like they probably won't be. I'm hoping for all of us that feel that way that we are proven wrong. But look, the Union decided to go with their starting 11, don't rotate against Sporting Kansas City. And Matt Real was the only change because Kai Wagner's dealing with that hamstring problem. But I thought Matt Real played well for Kai. He gave away a ton of corners, but isn't it better to play safe than to force something, which the Union have been doing a lot of this season? There were a couple instances in this game where Leon Flock was sending in crosses, and I'm just shaking my head. Why is Leon Flock sending in crosses? And I'm just shaking my head and saying, why? That's the last person you want whipping in crosses. And again, I thought defensively the Union were sound against Sporting Kansas City. I don't think they gave up too many good chances. And when Sporting looked best to score, it was offset pieces because the Union wouldn't totally clear the ball the best. So SKC would have a player be able to get a shot off towards goal. Jacob Glesnes probably played his best ever game as a Union player. Definitely up there, top 3 games. It's not even a question. He's been the best player of the season for the club, and it's not close in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen, like I said, the Union use the fullbacks more, using the width. But you know, when you have a player like Nate Harriel, who, is getting better offensively, he's great defensively, but he's not Bizo offensively. You lose a little bit of that on the right side in the attack. And that's what the Union should have been doing all night long, is attacking the left side of the field of Sporting Kansas City, where they're playing a player out of position. They're playing a center back as a left back. Why aren't you attacking that more? And I don't know, just a lot of questions. The Union could have been better on the night, and they they weren't. They should have won this game. They get a point. It's something, right? At least it's not 3 straight losses, which the last time they did that was in 2017. So, um, would not have been good if the Union would have lost 3 straight games in league. And they get a point, no goal. Disappointing, but gotta start someplace, right? So let's go over our 3 stars of the night. Number one, like I said, Jacob Glesnes, been the best player so far this season for the Union, my opinion. I think that was Glesnes's best ever Union game. You can argue his top 3 best game ever for the Union. 85 touches, though. That's way too many for a center back. Like Jim said, when you have your center backs creating your best chances, that's a recipe for disaster. And the Union have got to stop having their chances come through their center backs. It's got to be other players. It can't be your center backs. Your center back taking 85 touches. That's way too many touches. He had 7 passes into the final third, 4 out of 5 tackles won, 1 block, 4 interceptions, 14 ball recoveries, 7 out of 7 ground duels won, and 1 for 1 in the air. Jacob Glesnes was on fire. Again, been the best player so far this season for the Union. Well deserved contract extension for him a couple weeks ago. He's definitely earning his money. Number 2, Jose Martinez, 3 out of 5 tackles won, 4 interceptions, 8 ball recoveries. Like I said, I mean, there were a couple times in this game where he was getting pulled out of position, but I think for the most part, Jose played a good game defensively. And number 3, Nate Harriel, 5 interceptions, 9 ball recoveries, 2 out of 2 ground duels won, 2 out of 2 aerials won. You guys noticing a trend? All 3 of the players I just mentioned were because of what they did defensively, nothing offensively. And we do want the Union's defense to continue to be what they were last season, to continue to produce clean sheets, but they've got to get the offense clicking. I mean, feel like we spent a long time on this podcast talking about that, so we won't talk about that anymore. But yeah, there's three players were my star players on the night because of their defensive contributions. Let's quickly go over Blunder of the Week. And I only had one choice, and I'm not going to lie. I was like, okay, what should Blunder of the Week be? And then Chelsea Football Club did everybody a solid, or maybe not everyone a solid because of how bad Chelsea have been this season in the Premier League. They have sacked manager Graham Potter, and I think this is a disgrace, especially when Graham Potter has Brighton playing probably above their weight, playing in the top half of the Premier League table. Chelsea decide to sack Thomas Tuchel and take Graham Potter from Brighton. And not only that, they take a whole bunch of staff from Brighton. They basically become Brighton 2.0, but with all the money in the world. Money that Brighton will never have. And so Chelsea go out and they spend over $600 million since owner Todd Bowley bought the club in May. And you're spending over $600 million. You're paying another team to steal their manager away from them. And you do all this, and you sit in 11th place in the Premier League with 38 points. That's not great. And believe it or not, I don't blame Graham Potter. I blame Chelsea, where I was talking to a buddy that lives in England about this earlier today, where soccer's changed, where it's not the managers anymore saying, okay, I want this player, I want this player. All the players that Chelsea brought in have not been Graham Potter signings. They've been the ownership signings. And that's not a great recipe, in my opinion, because you're telling the manager, all right, these are the players we're bringing into the club. So you need to adapt to these players, not the manager saying, I want these players in because they adapt to my system. And that's not what happens anymore in soccer. You see Chelsea going out, just spending money just to spend it. Oh, this guy's young. Let's go ahead and bring him into the club. We don't care if he fits Graham Potter's system. We don't care if there's room for him on the team. We'll find a way to get him into the side. And that's not a great recipe for success. And it doesn't just happen at Chelsea. It happens all over the world. That's the way soccer is going now. And yeah, it's good to have a sporting director. It's good to have a general manager. But when you're just buying players just to buy players and not think about how they're going to fit into your manager system, that's an issue. And that's what it seems like Chelsea have done ever since Todd Bowley has bought the club. And there's a reason why Chelsea sit in 11th place. But that's pretty much it for this episode. And again, I'm shocked that this episode is 101 for as long as it has, because we didn't have a ton of segments. I guess we had a lot to talk about. I guess I had a lot to get off my chest. And we've went over an hour, which hopefully you guys don't mind that. Maybe you guys were able to use this episode and feel the same way as I do. Let your frustrations out. Maybe you guys agree with a lot of my points. Maybe you guys don't. Maybe it helps you guys think about things differently. I don't know. I guess I did have a lot to get off my chest. I didn't expect it. I'll be honest. I thought this was probably only going to be like a 40-minute episode and not over an hour long. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Search The Free Kick, and I think it's youtube.com/freekickpod is the other way you can find the podcast. And sucks that we won't have any goal breakdown videos this week. Maybe I should do close chances, but I don't know. It's like a goal breakdown segment, and there was no goals to break down this game. So we will get a video up this week, hopefully sometime soon, of me just going around the stadium interviewing the people you heard in this episode. And yeah, you guys can hear more of their responses to my questions, and you guys can get video along with the audio. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.